lots to talk about from that match. And joining me at this point of time is Rajiv Seth, former cricketer, and Andrew Miller, UK editor of ESPN Cricket Info. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let me start by asking Rajiv Seth this. Let me start by asking about Dhruv Jurel. India was struggling in the first innings. In comes Dhruv Jurel. And there is a very famous meme that goes around where this gentleman says, call the ambulance, but not for me. And that is what happens in this test match as well. Dhruv Jurel, first innings, scores a 90. Second innings, it was a brilliant, mature innings. Is he the find of the series for you?
Indeed, Usama. I mean, it's been a great news. What we've been looking for, a wicketkeeper batsman who could be a reliable bat and get us those crucial runs in the middle. And this is where I think Jurel made the point, having not played too many first-class matches, but his consistency for UP and the way he has done well in domestic, restored that faith of the selectors in him. And I think the way he batted, I mean, he never looked to be a guy who's new to Test cricket. And that's what you got to give it to the guy. And I think overall, I'm sure he must have been backed very well by Rohit and team. But it was a tremendous knock. And look that he carried in the second innings too. So this shows that he has that temperament. He has that ability to build the innings and take it to the opposition. And that's what really I liked it.
Well, absolutely. Andrew, we'll talk about some of the youngsters who were there in the match. And we'll obviously be talking about Shoaib Bashir and Hartley. But I want to start by asking you about Dhruv Jurel and the kind of impact that he has had in this match, apart from a certain Sarfaraz Khan and Yashasvi Jaiswal. What did you make of the performances that these young players have, the kind of performances that they made in this particular match?
Well, they've been really, really impressive. I mean, as you mentioned, England have got their own youngsters in Shoaib Bashir, etc. And we make a lot of their inexperience, but, no less experience than the guys that they were up against with the bat in this occasion. And Dhruv just looked like to the manner born. I mean, the way he came out and faced that hat-trick ball, he got a bit of an inside edge on it, but thereafter he was nudging the singles. He was playing with confidence. His footwork was sound. He showed the composure that made it look 120 for 5. And actually, once he was there supporting Shubman Gill, it felt as though India were back in control. And to say that of a guy in his second test, given a lot of people have been talking about MS Dhoni and the similarity, the composure he's shown, and he's going to get a lot of pressure on his shoulders to have comparisons like that thrown at him. But the fact is, he did not look like he was a rookie in this match. He looked like one of the senior pros, and his keeping was exceptional as well. So there's so much to be incredibly impressed about. And it just goes to show the depth of quality that India can find. And that's probably the main reason why they muscled England out of this series.
Well, absolutely. And funny that you mentioned MS Dhoni, and especially with the match going on happening in Ranchi. Rajiv said, like Andrew mentioned, India was missing so many superstars. And what did you make of the captain, Rohit Sharma? And how well did you think Rohit Sharma managed to manage his squad in this test series?
Well, all I can say is, Osama, he had a task on hand to handle Sarfaraz, the young Sarfaraz, who's known to be very, flamboyant and could be very aggressive at times. And you could see that glimpse in one moment where he didn't want to wear a helmet and wanted to be on the, in the close-in fielding position.
Absolutely.
He had to tell
for the audience, I just want to revisit that moment, and because that is what Rohit Sharma said: "Zyada hero nahi banne ka, wear a helmet." And this is possibly what the message was from Rohit Sharma to the youngsters as well.
Correct. And this is what Rohit is known for. I mean, hang on a sec. We are talking about a guy who's proved his worth in all formats. He has been one of the most successful IPL captains for Mumbai Indians, and he has tremendous experience as a captain also. So I think he marshaled his troops very well. He kind of made those changes very effectively. That's very important. See, when you're playing, class spinners in your team, Ashwin, we all know what he can do, and rightly deserving 500 plus wickets at this stage. And Kuldeep Yadav, bringing in those guys in at the right time and wanting to put the pressure on. One thing I can always say that when India gets 300 on board, India is a very different team with the kind of bowling attack it has and, the kind of depth it has. So that's something that we saw in this match. Had it not, actually, I started off saying it was an England's game. The way they posted 353 and they kind of gave a challenge, but I think it was the great innings of Jurel which made us really come back and then put pressure on England to sort of count the second innings in the match. And this is where I think it all made the difference. And all kudos to Rohit for his captaincy.
Well, let's also talk about baseball, considering that we have an Englishman on the show. There are a lot of opinions from everywhere, but you also have to give credit to the English. They were in the game and sometimes even in control for parts of the test match and even in the test series. The problem was sustaining that for a longer period. Do you think baseball needs a little tweaking so that control is possibly not just for one session or a day, but over the 5 days and the course of the test match?
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because England don't actually subscribe to the word baseball. I came up with it a couple of years ago, and they've never really liked the idea of it being a notion that is given to them. But what it really comes down to is mindset. Their baseball mindset, call it what you will, is a belief that they can win from any situation. And that's what got them that victory in that first test, turning the tables in extraordinary fashion. That's what allowed Ben Duckett to play an exceptional innings in the test that just gone. So I think the trouble they had in this game, I think the belief just disappeared. The way that India, through Dhruv Jurel primarily, battled back, and then Ashwin and Kuldeep turning the screw, I think the belief left England at crucial moments. And that's really what baseball is about. It's not about teeing off and hitting every ball for six. It's about believing that even if you're defending stoutly, you're defending with a real purpose. And I just felt as though, certainly in England's innings, as those spinners were turning the screw, the way England went about it, I just thought they were a bit tentative. You know, they've come out to India several times before and tried to defend against spin and, you know, getting bowled out for 145 and 53 overs. And in fact, it happened pretty much the same in the last test as well. They went into a hole and lost by 400 runs. They've done that before in India and they've lost that way. And so, funnily enough, I felt as though baseball kind of deserted them towards the back end of this test, insofar as they lost the belief that they could actually compete in these conditions. Ben Stokes said at the end it was virtually impossible to play India in those conditions, which is a very defeatist way of him to sum up what had been actually a quite close test up to that point. So, yeah, as again, it comes back to the point we made from the top, that India have got some incredible young players and some incredible old players in Ashwin and co. And together, it proved to be a challenge too far, even for baseball.
Absolutely. And this is England's first test series defeat after Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes. They came together as coach and captain. Rajiv said, how do you see India in such conditions? Because it just seems as if it is virtually impossible to beat a team like India at home. What do you do to get a result out of from this team? And as the England team going to Dharamshala now, what would be going through their mind, and what would be the ideal preparation for the Dharamshala test so that they can get a result out of it? Because it feels as if it is virtually impossible to beat India at home.
First of all, Osama, I'll just please allow me to make a small comment about the baseball part by my dear friend Andrew would second me on that. You know, as he rightly said, baseball is not about bang, bang, bang. It's all about control aggression. You got to, if you have countered an opponent on the first test by saying that, look, there is a baseball factor which will make England ride over India, you got to maintain it in control fashion. I mean, this is where I thought England lost it, because there was too much of defensive approach at one point, where I felt that they could have gone for a few runs, going over the top and playing the spin very well and very well accustomed to Indian conditions, having played IPL and stuff like that. So I thought somewhere they missed the trick. It was not a bad start. It was not a bad count. And mind you, Indians are not the same Indians what they used to be when the words will play around and put pressure, whether it's home turf or it's away. So it's very different. Now, coming back to this point, you know, when I was reading about Jurel, and he said, look, typically in my IPL innings, I'm given 10 or 15 balls to score 30 odd runs. And here I had to graft it out. I had to play 100 odd balls for a considerable half century. So his approach changed. His whole dimensions changed. So that's what is important when you play at international level, at this level with two best teams in the world. You got to change, adapt, and go forward. And this is where the question lies, where you say, what's in it for Dharamshala now? Now, England has to first find ways and means to restrict India below 250 if you got to make a game of it. Because I personally feel that India has a psychological advantage having that bowling that they have if they score 300 plus. And this is where it makes a huge difference. Because, see, again, Dharamshala is a batting track. I mean, you can't call it as a seaming wicket just because it's on a hilltop. So you got to see it with the strength of the location of the venue. And I think I won't see toss as a vital factor there. It could be an element where one gains an advantage in the first day or first session or something of that sort. But I think you got to bat well. In England's position, Andrew would second me on that. How could you count on big total if your top 3 batsmen or 4 batsmen don't click?
Yeah.
I mean, too much of reliance on Joe Root. Yeah. Stoke didn't click. Pope came in well in the first innings. Yeah. But what about rest? I mean, your 30s and 40s are not going to help you build those runs.
Absolutely.
So I think England has a great homework to do, and I'm sure they will, and they will come back strongly, knowing England as a team.
Do you think, Andrew, as part of that homework, there would be something to learn from, say, a certain Shubman Gill, considering when you look at this inning, it was his slowest half century. No boundaries till he was sure that India is completely in control. Do you think some of the top order batters, English batters, would learn from Shubman Gill? Because Shubman Gill is very capable of hitting those balls out of the park, but he didn't. And that is possibly something that the English team would look at.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because going back to what I said earlier, England have come out to India, they've come out to Australia in the past, on big major tours, and played their way and lost quite heavily usually. And this time they've come out very much with the mindset that we believe we're going to do it differently this way. And as we saw in that first test, it worked. As we saw when they got to 200 for 2 with Duckett scoring that incredible 150, it worked. It worked for long periods in this test, albeit with a little bit of tweak when Joe Root got his rather slower 100. But the point is England have taken a positive approach to much of what they've done. The only times they've taken a negative approach, in my opinion, were the second innings at Rajkot and the second innings here, when they basically went into their shells and they got mown down by India spinners, and we've got Bumrah coming back as well. So if England stay still and wait for the ball with their name on it, I think they will lose even more heavily. Funnily enough, so I actually disagree. I think there's a lot to admire about Shubman Gill, but he's a player in his own conditions, getting better as the series goes on. I don't think England have got that luxury. I think England have got to play the way they believe. Zach Crawley, for instance, has played incredibly well this series, but he's got a higher score of 76. He's done everything right until the point he hasn't. And that's what England had done wrong. Joe Root included. He was doing everything right until he played that reverse scoop, which was the wrong shot at the wrong moment. But again, that's the consequences of your actions are something that's priced into baseball, I think. It's England aren't going to criticise as long as you're doing it with conviction, I think, is the point there. So England have got to go back out to Dharamshala, do it all again with conviction, got to bat with belief that they can get a big score, rush India into mistakes, all the things they did very well in that first test, and close the series out on a high. Because, losing their first series under Bazball is a shame for them, but I don't think it derails the fact that it has been an approach that has worked for them, albeit they didn't win the Ashes either. But, they don't win an awful lot as a rule as a test team. They'd won one match out of 17 before Bazball. So I'm not going to throw out the concept just because of one series defeat.
Absolutely. Consequences, no consequences, Bazball, no Bazball. Well, on to the final test match in Dharamshala, and we would be hoping that it is another cracker of a contest. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the show. We'll slip into a very short break. More news on the other side.